You are listening to the Willpower Podcast. Welcome to the show. I am Will Holdren, and I talk with some of the most influential CEOs, entrepreneurial leaders, and thought leaders to try and reveal the secrets that has led to their success. I believe that with the right knowledge and mindset, you can do anything you set your mind to. So if you want to learn how to change your life for the better, if you want to learn how millionaires actually became wealthy, or if you want to develop and start your own business from the ground up with the right knowledge to help you, then you are in the right place because this is the Willpower Podcast.
Nowhere that we go is a one-way street. Nothing that we love is a one-day key. And if we gon' do it, we gon' do this now. And if we say we gon' hold this down. Nowhere that we...
How's it going, everyone? My name is Will Holdren, and I'm the host of the Willpower Podcast. Today we have a very special guest on, and her name is Carrie Long. And Carrie is actually a realtor based out of Virginia, and she was with Rose and Wample. So it was an honor to have her on here today. So Carrie, thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Of course, my pleasure. And so to start off, I kind of go into your childhood a little bit, so we can kind of talk about what your childhood was like and how it helped turn you into who you are today.
So I grew up in a very small town in Virginia. I affectionately say it's one stoplight and a 7-Eleven, although since now that 7-Eleven is closed. I graduated with 17 people. So when I say a small town, Wow. It was a small town. But I had an international mother. She was a Navy mom. And my grandparents were Chinese and Portuguese and German and Spanish and, this big melting pot of people. So she grew up in Hawaii and she met my father in this little town and they decided to stay there. So I always say that I grew up in a small town, but I didn't have like small town exposure. So I grew up eating international food. It was important to her that we learned about the world and traveled, to places. And my dad worked for the nuclear power plant not far from our house. And I grew up with him working anywhere from, 50 to 60 hours a week. Wow. And I got my work ethic from him. And I had my first babysitting job when I was 12 and my first paycheck job when I was 15. I actually worked at the one little pizza shop in town. And I wasn't old enough to serve beer. So the chef in the back, the pizza chef, had to come out and serve beer for me because I was, I couldn't do that. But I waited tables and I've worked ever since.
Wow. Well, I thought my town was small. I have 40 people in my graduating class, but 17 is just like half of that. I can't even imagine what that's like for you. So
yeah, it's exactly. And it's and it's a rural community. And I always joke, nobody ever believes me, but our senior skip day was the first day of hunting season. So, I mean, it was, you grew up there and you were either going to be, you're going to be working your family's farm. You might go work at the plant or the shipyard, which was, 45 minutes away. Or if you were lucky, you wanted to, you would go to college. So I went to college. I went to the University of Virginia. It was the only school that I wanted to go to. And I did. And I was going to go to medical school. That was what I told everybody I was going to do. So I went there. I majored in biology and I could, again, remember small town. So I go to this really huge school and I had a great time. I graduated, but I lost my love for medicine because I decided that I really like people, but I don't like seeing people suffering. And I didn't like seeing people hurt or have to have conversations with them about death or illness. So I said, so I'm not going to do medicine. So I moved to Richmond, Virginia, our capital, because I wanted to live in a city. And I started working and then I started grad school. I thought maybe I could take that biology degree and do something else with it. Like I had this vision of being like a CSI or something like that. And a semester into it, I was like, you know what? I'm not sure this is for me either. So I just worked for a little while. I did the proverbial, waiting tables. I got married really young. I got divorced not soon after that. And my ex-husband is how I ended up in Hampton Roads. he wanted to move down here to be closer to his family. At the time, my first sales job ever, I was actually selling wedding gowns, and I got recruited to sell them from a woman that I waited tables on. She said, "Hey, you'd be great. I'm opening this bridal shop. Why don't you come work for me?" And I did that for 5 years.
Wow.
And then, met my husband, moved down here. We split not soon after moving here. And then I was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? So I decided I was going to get my MBA. I loved business. I loved selling. Actually, I really enjoyed selling wedding gowns. It sounds crazy because it was crazy. But I was very service oriented. I was very much I never cared about what the price of the dress was or anything about that. It was more about what that person's dream and goal was, like most women, think about their wedding day, right? So I ended up in a customer service job actually for an insurance company, and did that for a while, and then finished my MBA and ended up working for one of the largest defense contractors in the country, just randomly, and worked my way up in the company and decided that I was going to do HR for the rest of my life. So it was kind of a big shift. I finished my MBA, and then I had these goals. I was going to be the vice president of HR, and I was going to do corporate America for the rest of my life.
Gotcha.
And yeah, so kind of funny. Life throws you kind of twists and turns of things, and I reached a point in my career where I wanted to do more, and the company was kind of shifting in different directions. So I always say the universe makes things available to you. It's just whether or not you're open to receive them. And on a lark, I put my resume on LinkedIn, and I got contacted by a headhunter. So I went to go work for the U.S. Navy as a contractor. And I was like, this is so great. I can reinvent myself. And here's the funny thing about working for a government contractor. Government contractors can lose their contracts. And that happened about 5 months in to that job. And I was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Here I am. I have an MBA. Oh, and I had gotten another master's degree in HR. And I went to this big university. And what am I doing, with my life? So I reached out to the realtor who helped my husband and I buy, my current husband and I buy the house that we're in now. And I said, hey, listen, I know that you're a really successful real estate agent, and it looks like you could use some help. I'm really good at organizational development. In fact, I have a degree in that. And, I made her this 7-page prospectus of how I could join the team, help the team. I told her what I wanted my salary to be. I told her I wanted to get my license, and that I was going to eventually be a real estate agent, and I was going to add value to her team. And she hired me, and that was 6 years ago.
Wow. That is definitely a very interesting come up. And just from hearing your story, I love how you were able to just get your degree, go into a job, even though you didn't like it, you spent all this time getting the degree, just going to that job, and you still didn't like it, you decided, okay, I'm going to do what's right for me, what's going to make me happy. So you decided to switch out of that and going completely new direction. And then you just kept on doing that. And that's just cool to see. So talk me through those experiences. What was it like just, switching careers, starting in something completely new? Was that hard to do? Did you have a lot of backlash from people around you, even though you got your degree in MBA in a different field and decided not to go into there with that? What was that like?
There was actually a lot of what are you doing? Do you have a path? But, kind of what you said, it's this thing where if you feel that something's not right in your gut, you feel I'm not, and I hate to use the word happy because it's not really about happiness. It's more about fulfillment, right? Because I feel like I get my happiness and my joy from my family and my friends, but I get fulfilled by my career. And that fulfillment is more about who am I helping, right? And so for me, some people would say well, what does that mean? But if I'm not getting fulfilled by this, or I don't feel like I'm giving back to people, and if you know anything about human resources, which I was doing for a while, it's not super fun to walk into work and tell people, hey, you're fired, or hey, you're written up, or hey, you've, that was the kind of work that I was doing. So, and then people were like, well, how could you turn away this big job? And I was making pretty good money. And what I said was, I got to do what's right for me, because if I'm not fulfilled, then I'm going to bring that home with me. So then I can have happiness, because then my family and my friends are going to know that I'm unhappy, not fulfilled. And I'm going to take that into the rest of my life. And I just said, hey, you got to just watch me, watch what I do. And and here I am.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I'm glad you really brought that up too, because I feel like a lot of kids nowadays, they go to college, get the degree, and they feel like they're kind of stuck in that major, in that, side of business, corporate America. They never really make that switch. And then next thing you know, you're 20 years down the road and you're still with the same company, you're doing the same old thing, like same day, 9 to 5. So it's cool to see like how it can change. Like if you just decide to follow your heart, and things are still going to work out in the long run, you can find other opportunities that, could pay you and still work out and make you happy at the same time, which is what it's all really about, like fulfillment, like you're talking about. And so when you decided to go into real estate, and you sent your resume kind of to that realtor, like what was that like? Like you just obviously sent it to her like out of the blue, like.
Yeah, like I said, I had a relationship with her. She was the agent that sold my house to me. She actually, my husband at the time was a volunteer EMT. So just a fun point, Virginia Beach is the largest volunteer rescue squad in the country. And my husband grew up in Connecticut, and he has always been an EMT volunteer. So he was volunteering. So that's how he met her. And I was like, hey, I'm going to write this like 7-page, basically like why this thing for her. And I called her and I said, hey, I'd like to take you out to lunch, and I want to talk to you about a business opportunity. And I slid the proposal across the table, and I talked to her about what my plans were. And I basically said, hey, like you have this team, you're super busy, you don't have any time for your family. You tell my husband how stressed you are, and you want to grow the team, and you need policies and procedures. And I was like, that's my wheelhouse. That's my jam. I can do that. And I had a plan with dates and timelines, like, I'm going to do this for this much, and I'm going to do this for this amount of time. And, I'm going to give you write some policies for you, organize, create. And I created myself a position, and I became the executive director of her team. Wow. And and then, I got my license and hit the ground running with that. So I was running the team and then building my business at the same time. And she was happy to have me, because I sort of was a filter between her and the other agents on our team, because there was somebody else who could go, yeah, no, that's not how we do it here, or here's some training, or here's some, some different things. So I created training modules, started researching different technologies, things that we could do to improve the level of service we were providing to our clients. And and it took off from there.
Gotcha. And so I'm assuming you had a salary, right, when you first get started with her, like doing the policies and that side of things. So then when you got your license, did you still have that salary, or were you just going purely commission then at that point?
I actually so in that plan was a slow decline of that salary. So basically I said, hey, I'm going to take this salary for 3 months. And then after 3 months, I'm going to get my license. And then, you're going to pay me this much. And then, I was pure commission after that, with like a small stipend, I would call, from her for some of the work that I was still doing for her. So I did that. So I started with her in October, and got my license around the same time, because I was studying for my license while I was doing some work for her on the side before I even left my company. Announced to the Navy that I was leaving to be a real estate agent. So that was interesting. But it worked out, because actually the director of that department ended up being a client of mine years later, and I sold her condo. So, so it's, and then I just, 100% commission. And it's a little scary, I think, maybe some people on the surface, but I think for me, I knew every morning if I wanted to get a paycheck, I had to work. So, and it hasn't failed me yet.
Yeah, that's awesome. And like, to me, I think this was like your first real estate, like entrepreneurship. Like you said, you didn't really have a salary. I think you said you had a sales job before, which might've been commission. But for this, like you said, like you're totally off the salary, totally depending on yourself to make your own like compensation to be paid at the end of the day. So what was that change in mindset like for you when you're going through that period? Because obviously, not a lot of people can make that transition or even make it as a realtor. So what was that like for you?
So I think it was definitely a mind shift. It was just the idea that, usually most people, right, you kind of like what you alluded to, right? You go to college, you get a job, you get your salary, you get your paycheck every 2 weeks, or, or twice a month, or whatever it is. And, And then you're just kind of on that, what I call like a hamster wheel, just every day. Right. And I just didn't want to be on the wheel. So I knew that I was in charge of my own destiny. And I am the type of person that if you tell me I can't do something, I'm probably going to do it anyway and actually do it better because I like the challenge.
Right.
And so, I do appreciate my husband was super supportive because I basically said, hey, I'm going to quit my 6-figure job and go sell real estate with this lady that you run Rescue Squad with. And he was like, I'm sorry, what are you doing?
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it really was like, but it was the freedom of working for myself, right? It was that idea that, I could mold and make this kind of into me, because even though I was working I was working more with her, right? We were building stuff that we were both going to utilize. So it was that idea that I really wasn't doing it on my own per se. I had somebody who had, some more experience in the business than I did. She had some, she was really like a mentor. And then I was delivering her value by designing some of these things that, like I said, that we use later for the team. And it just, it was kind of a win-win. And then every day I put my feet on the floor. I'm like, I'm gonna make money today because, that's what you have to do. But I also say that saying that in all of this, it really hasn't been about the money. It's been more about, like I said, that fulfillment. I wanted to do something where I felt like I was helping people, that they were going to value the service that I provided for them. And then they were going to tell 5 or 10 other people. And that was how I was going to build my business. So I've never bought a lead. I've never paid for an ad.
Wow.
I've built my business just like that.
Wow. That's pretty impressive. And just like you're talking about, I think you came into the real estate industry like the perfect way. You had a mentor kind of set up. You're learning with her side by side. So when you did get your license, you weren't starting from scratch pretty much. You had a basic understanding like how to go, where to start, what to do next, that kind of thing. So I think that was a huge part of it. And so when you got your license, like how long did it take you to get your first deal?
So let's see, I was licensed in October. I had my first closing February of the following year. And it actually was the most interesting transaction you could ever have. It was actually a foreign buyer who his son had to buy on his behalf. And it was just this random person who called my real estate company one day. And I happened to be on the opportunity desk, taking phone calls for the brokerage. Wow. And then my first ever real client was actually a friend of mine who wanted to build her dream house and said that she couldn't find land because in Virginia Beach, land's really hard to come by. And I said, well, who said you need to buy land? Let's buy a house and tear it down. And that's what we did. we bought a house and tore it down. So she closed the first week of February, and that other closing was the second week of February. And then my first full calendar year of real estate, I had 17 deals. And the average agent in their first year is usually 3 to 4 deals.
Oh my gosh. Were you like rookie of the year or something after that?
Yeah, I mean, it was great. I mean, well, that's the thing. Like when you're on a team, so the structure is a little bit different. I mean, yeah, it was a big deal. My brokerage made a big deal of it for me. But you sell as a team, you work as a team. And then in comparison, so last year I had my first year real estate, I think my average sales price was $220,000. Last year I had 22 transactions and my average sales price was $385,000. So it's not necessarily about the quantity, it's about the quality. Yeah. So
what their sales price are. Yeah. That's awesome. So you're showing growth then from where you first started to where you are now. So that is cool to see. And so something you mentioned is that you never actually bought a lead, which I think is pretty impressive. So like, how exactly do you buy or get leads anyway? Do you like call up family and friends like, hey, I'm a realtor, I got sales, or what's that look like for you?
So I am at this point, I'm 90% referral. So if you are a client of mine, it's because you know somebody that I know. I've met you at a party or an event. I accept party invites and, any sort of social event. I love people. I love going out and doing things. And then my past clients, of course, I, have relationships with them that span obviously the years. Actually, on Friday, I just took 10 of my top clients and friends out for a really nice dinner, just a ladies' night. Some of my ladies' clients, 3-course meal with a wine tasting just to thank them for being such great customers and clients. And I touch base with my clients consistently and continuously, and they just continue to send me business. And then that other 10% is, open houses and, making sure that the neighborhoods that I work in, whether I live there or I've worked there because I've had a listing there, that they know I'm a real estate agent and I'm available to help them. So, yeah, I mean, the first thing I did actually when I joined my team leads team was I had her cancel her lead generation bill. And I said, you don't need this. We can do this without it. And we never have.
That's crazy. 90% referral. I mean, that's like incredible. I don't know what the industry standard is, but I feel like it's definitely got to be higher, So
Yeah. It's not 90. People are usually pretty impressed when I tell them that, but I'm like, it's a testament. Like I said, my clients are super loyal. I treat them like most of my clients become my friends in the truest sense of the word. They call me when things are exciting. They invite me to stuff. I get wedding invitations, baby announcements, but I'm a part of their life. I mean, if you think about it, real estate, it's the most money you'll ever spend in your life. So, I mean, wouldn't you want that transaction to be handled by someone who genuinely cares about you? And I genuinely care about my clients. Right. So I feel like they get that. And then, I follow up with them until they tell me not to.
Yeah. That's pretty remarkable. And how long did it take you to get to that 90% referral, success rate? Because obviously, when you start out, you're not going to be at that 90%.
No.
You know what I mean? So what was that starting out phase for you, to get to that 90%?
To get to that 90%, I keep track obviously of where all of my transactions come from. So, I had that one friend that, like I said, I helped, with her house. And that first year, most of my transactions were, open houses that I met people. I held other people's houses open because I really didn't have a lot of listings. And then friends of mine would send my name out to people or what have you. So I probably started, I think that first year, I think of the first full year of transactions, 2 were people that I knew. They were what we call our personal sphere. Right. Gotcha. And then that probably started changing around year 3, because I've been in real estate almost about 5.5 years now. So about year 3, it starts to shift because the average person, especially in this market, is usually about 4 to 5 years. People are ready to make a move. In my case, I had clients that were military who bought, before they had kids, or maybe it was, they bought because they moved to the area because they wanted to buy, they didn't want to rent. And now suddenly they want to sell and they want to buy something else. And that's sort of how that snowball continued. And then, they would be happy with me. So they would come back to me, and then they would tell their sister, they would tell their friend. I had a transaction actually last year that was a couple that I helped buy a house. They divorced and I helped him buy a house. And then she wanted to buy a house with her new boyfriend. And I was their agent for all of those transactions.
Wow.
So, I mean, yeah. So it's just, right? But they, like I said, my clients, they know that they can trust me. That's important. They can tell me anything, and they do. Because, you're not just a real estate agent. You're, probably seen the memes, right? You're a therapist, you're a counselor, you're all these people to them. And I try to be that and more.
Right. And so another reoccurring theme is that I'm seeing for you is that it's obviously building relationships and making sure that every client that comes through you has the best experience possible. And that's how you get more referrals going down the road. So how do you kind of get into the spot of having and building a great relationship with each one of your clients? What are you doing? Sending out birthday cards, that kind of stuff every day? Because you said you get invited to the weddings and all that kind of stuff. How do you get to that spot to be in your life like that?
So I do. I mean, I pay attention. So I listen. I think that's the biggest thing. I think whatever business that you're in, if you're dealing with people, you need to listen, right? You need to pay attention to what's important to them. So, if I have a client who says, "Oh my gosh, Carrie, I love popcorn. Popcorn is just the best, and I just eat popcorn every day." Then, 3 months into them buying a house, I might ship them a popcorn, bowl and some stuff. I have, birthday cards, obviously I do that. I'm intertwined with most of my clients on social media, Instagram and Facebook. I find out what they're doing. Sometimes I'll send them little notes, little congratulations. I keep track of anniversaries. New babies get little gifts. I send little gifts along the way when my clients are in the middle of a transaction, because buying a house and selling a house is stressful. So just little touches. And one of the things that I'm very proud of is that when you buy or sell a house with me, so I'm from the South, of course, in my little town, and my grandmother, who on my father's side, whenever we would have any sort of celebration, like a baby shower or a wedding or something like that, my grandmother would make pimento cheese. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's like, cheese and I think traditionally it's mayonnaise and like pimentos, or like little red peppers. That's like a spread. I hand make that for every one of my clients, and I put it in a container and I give it to them at closing. So, and then I never bring like one of those big crazy gift baskets typically, unless it's, specific to that client. And then and follow up with them at 3 months, at 6 months, at 9 months, and then at a year. And then at a year, my clients either get like some special gift, or if it's a family, I pay for them to have their family pictures taken. So it's, again, I get blessed immensely by them purchasing or selling a house with me. And I want to give that appreciation back to them in a way that, they feel like they're valued. And, just today I got a note, because I have a gift program that I send now to some of my top clients. And she was like, "Oh my gosh, I got your gift today. It just made my day." And that's important to me. I want to make their day.
I love that. And it's really like what separates you as a realtor from other realtors too. And obviously that's how you grow and prosper. And I feel like a lot of realtors like, oh, I don't want to spend all this money on gifts, because then I got to do it for all my clients, and it adds up to be a big toll at the end of the day. But like you're saying, like when you sell a house, like that's like a $10,000 check, and you're spending like what, $50 on them. Like that's worth it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So.
Yeah, absolutely. Because here's the thing, like, so, and also too, my little town, there's a peanuts are a big thing in my little town. They're peanut farmers, right? So my clients, they always get peanuts at Christmas. And I say, from my hometown to yours. And it just so happens the gentleman who runs the peanut company now, we went to high school with. So that's great, right? Local businesses are important to me too. But yeah, I mean, so I spend, let's just say I spend $2,000 on peanuts sending to all of my past closed clients. I mean, yeah, and they're going to send me a client and a referral, and they're going to send me, like you said, a transaction that's $8,000 or $10,000. So I look at it, spend $2,000 to make my clients happy, when there's agents out there that are spending $2,000 a month for leads from one of the big companies. I feel like I'm winning. So, yeah. I mean, why not bless the people who blessed you, instead of, working with a bunch of strangers that, or come across your phone or, your computer. Because, I meet strangers, but I meet them at open houses. Right. I mean, every once in a while I'll have somebody reach out to me on Facebook or Instagram. Well, you've seen what kind of person I am on Insta or Facebook. So it's not like we're really strangers per se. You know what I mean? It's not just some random dude going, "Hey, I'd like to buy a house." So.
Right. Well, obviously your methods are working. So good job with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And now before we run out of time, so I have a couple more questions for you. So one, overlooking everything you've done so far, I mean, in your opinion, what is the best advice that you have received? Best piece of advice, would you say?
The best advice that I've ever received is don't do anything for the money. The money will come.
Love that.
Yeah.
Awesome. And then on the other side of that, what's the worst piece of advice you've ever received?
Don't go into real estate.
Well, that's it. There you go. That's funny.
Yeah.
And then my last question is, what are some of your goals that you want to get accomplished in the next couple of years? What do you hope to plan to achieve?
Oh gosh. So I actually had a really good friend who had us all, we had a vision board party. So I've never done one of those before. This is the first year I did one. So I'm looking up at the one in my office. I own a rental right now, an investment property. I'd like to, own one or two. Being in this business, it is about building wealth. So you need to create other sources of income for you, because you do never know when the market might shift. I mean, I'm an amazing agent, but things could change. There have been periods of time in real estate where things have gone up and down. And I really want to get my son to college. He's a freshman in high school. So that is like a big thing. He wants to go, like, so I'm not like making him go, but it's my goal is to get that completely paid for. And I'm almost there.
That's awesome. Congrats with that. That's super
Thanks.
cool. And before we hop off, is there anything else that you would like to say? And if people want to reach out to you, how can they find you?
I just want to say I appreciate this opportunity. I love having a chance to talk about what I do. My tagline is I love what I do, and I do love to do it for you. And that's how I live my life. You can find me on Insta. I'm CDK UVA because my UVA roots have not gone by. And it's Carrie Long Realtor. And it's very easily www.carrielongrealtor.com.
Awesome. All right, guys, there you have it. Carrie Long, thank you so much for joining me today.
Nothing that we love is a one-day key. And if we gon' do it, we gon' do this now. And if we say we gonna, we gon' hold this. It's been a fake.